What is up everybody and welcome back to the Maths Guide. Today we're looking at how to order and compare fractions that are bigger than 1, or in other words, mixed number fractions. So let's go. Okay, the one thing we're going to remember today is that we're going to need to find equivalent fractions to help us. So if you're not too sure about equivalent fractions, go back on the channel and watch that video first. That's really going to help you. Okay, so let's start with our green chili challenge. We're going to try and compare these two fractions. And we're going to compare with either the less than, the greater than, or the equal to symbol. So when we're comparing these two fractions, we can see we have 2 and 5/3 versus 3 and 1/5. We know it's bigger than 1 or a mixed number because we have a fraction, which is the 5/3 part, sitting next to a whole number, the 2. So we might look at these initially and just think, well, obviously the 3 and 1/5 will be bigger because we have 3 whole. Well, not necessarily, because over here I can see an improper fraction, so we do have some work to do. But what we need to understand is we cannot compare fractions when our denominators are different, so we need to find a common denominator and make equivalent fractions out of them. So I'm going to rewrite my 2 and 5/3 here, and my 3 and 1/5 over here. Now when it comes to finding a common denominator of both 3 and 5, what we could do is we could just go up in our times table, and starting with 3 for example, and do 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, etc, etc. And on the other one, 5, 10, 15. Well, bingo, I think I've seen a 15 in both of those lists. Therefore, I know that I can turn these into a common denominator of 15. But an even simpler way of doing it is just to look at my 3 and my 5 and do 3 times 5 equals 15. Might not be our lowest common denominator always, but it will be a common denominator. So to keep this equivalent, how did I get from 3 to 15? Well, I multiplied by 5. Therefore, I need to do that to the numerator as well. So 5 times 5 is 25. And then how did I get from 5 to 15? Well, I multiplied by 3. Therefore, I need to multiply my 1 times 3, giving me 3/15. So now my new equivalent fractions that I'm comparing are 2 and 25/15 and 3 and 3/15. But I can see another issue. I can see that I have an improper fraction here because I have 25 over 15, which means I have a chocolate bar that's been split into 15. Imagine that they're all equal slices, but I have 25 of them. And obviously, if I had all of these, I would only have 15. So therefore, I need to build another fraction bar. And again, imagining that's the same size. And if I had 15 over here, I would still need to cover 10 on my second fraction bar as well. So in other words, I have 1 whole and I have 10/15 over on this one. So I could rewrite my 25/15 as 1 and 10/15. So this fraction is actually 2 plus 1 and 10/15. Or in other words, 3 and 10/15. So now that I've done all the work of converting my fractions into the same denominators, and then converting this first one from an improper back to a mixed number, I can see that I have 3 and 10/15 compared to 3 and 3/15. Well, hopefully we can clearly see, therefore, that this value here is larger because I have 3 whole and then I have 10 lots of 15 compared to only 3 lots of 15. So my answer to this first question would be that 2 and 5/3 is larger than 3 and 1/5. Give myself a tick. Okay, but let's step it up a little bit and let's look at this really challenging one when we have to try and order these 3 fractions. Well, again, we can see we have different denominators and we can't do anything when we have different denominators, so we have to find a common denominator. Unfortunately, I can see that 40 would be a common denominator because if I did the 8 times table, I would eventually get to 40. And again, if I did it with the 5 times table, I would also eventually get to 40. And obviously 40 is already at 40. So I know that each of these denominators could be a 40. So let's work with that, and let's say we have 1, and then my new fraction will be over 40. Well, how did I get from 5 to 40? I'd have to multiply it by 8. So therefore I'm going to have to multiply 9 by 8, which is 72. And already I can see this is an improper fraction, but we'll get to that part in a moment. Then my next one is 2, and then the new denominator again wants to be 40. Well, how did I get from 8 to 40? I times it by 5. So now I'm going to have to multiply my 7 by 5. 7 times 5 is 35. And finally, my last one can stay as it is because we already have 40 as the denominator. So we have 1 and 16/40. Now I'm very close to being able to order these, but I can't because I see one improper fraction over here. And we have such big numbers, it's not going to make sense to draw this into a bar. So I'm just going to understand that if my whole is made up of 40 and I have 72 of them, well, within my 72, I'm going to have another lot of 40, aren't I? Because 72 divided by 40 is going to be 1 remainder 32. So it's like saying I have another whole one, which would turn my whole to a 2, and then I have 32 parts left of my 40. So my new fraction is going to be 2 and 32/40. So now I have my 3 fractions, 1, 2, 3, all ready to go and be compared. How are we going to compare them? Well, we have 2 choices. I can either compare them in what's called ascending order, which means I'm going to go from smallest to largest, or I could order them in descending order, which would be from largest to smallest. I'm going to keep things simple and put them in ascending order. So I'm going to have my smallest over here and my largest over here. And I can see that my smallest is obviously 1 and 16/40 because I still only have one whole, which is the original fraction. And then my second smallest is going to be the first one here, 2 and 32/40, which was originally 1 and 9/5. And then finally the largest one was this center one, 2 and 35/40, or in other words, 2 and 7/8. And there we go. That has just ordered my fractions from smallest to largest using all the skills required. Now it's your turn. Have a go at ordering and comparing these 2 challenges. We have a green chili challenge for the comparing, and the ordering is going to be a red chili challenge. Have a go at answering both of these questions and put your answers in the comment section. I'm going to try and mark them all. Press pause, good luck. And there you have it, guys. That is how to order and compare fractions that are greater than 1. If this has been helpful, head on over to themathshelter.com where you're going to find loads more maths to help you with everything in the UK curriculum. But for now, guys, see you in another video. Peace out.